because those are not the real leaders. Those are the people that have been the cabal, as I like to call them, also referred to as the Illuminati, most commonly called the deep state right now. No matter what you call them, they're basically the global elite, the richest people on the planet. They have been controlling behind the scenes, the hidden hand, the puppet masters behind the curtain for a long, long time. They've been able to control who gets elected, who doesn't get elected. They've been able to control a nation's resources through the currency, through the central bank scam. Baron M.A. Rothschild back in the day said, "Give me control of a nation's currency, and I care not who makes its laws." People need to wake up to the scam of the Federal Reserve, that it is a debt-based system that's designed to enslave individuals and designed to enslave countries. It's all coming to an end right now because of the massive increase in the vibratory energy that's coming in. As I'm suggesting, the hidden hand is no longer hidden. They've been forced out of the shadows into the open of the daylight. The World Economic Forum and all their nonsense, they're just playing out their final hand. The Great Reset is not going to work. Their greatest fear is an awakened public, and that is exactly what's happening. They were using a technology that is ET derived called Project Looking Glass, which enabled them to look into the future. And the white hats have it too, so it's really no big deal, and it's kind of useless at this point. But back in the day, before 2012, they were able to look into the future and to get a very good sense of the most likely outcome. If they were, and here again, they are the hidden hands, and they were manipulating events behind the scenes to get things to go in a desired direction, their desired direction. But when the progenitor race from Maldek, that's what they were called, did their number and destroyed their planet, they also raised a whole lot of damage on Mars, which got thrown out of the orbit and assumed the orbit that we know today and became the dead planet that we know today. So you've got all these beings that had to go somewhere, not only from Maldek, but also from Mars, who were, and I gave the details in my book of how they are time traveled and how they were brought to another appropriate third dimensional planet where they can live out how many lifetimes they need in order to get to the point to where they can ascend. Well, the Martians were time traveled, as were the progenitor race, I do believe, if I recall correctly, about 75,000 years, 425,000 years into their future, about 75,000 years into our past when they were brought here. It's the feeling, the actual sensation. That's the only thing that's real. And that's the thing that in the culture that we live in, we've been continually directed to, nah, don't go there because it doesn't feel good. You want to go, you go to a talk therapist, go lie down on the couch, and you will understand why you're frustrated, why you're stuck in anxiety, for all the good that does. You're still going to stay stuck, but now I understand. But the ushering us into the end times, meaning that according to Hopi prophecy, we're going to be going from the fourth world to the fifth world. Now, interestingly enough, they believe that we came from inside the earth, and that 3 times previously the earth has become polluted and immoral, and we just had to leave. It got so bad we couldn't be in the old world anymore, and they say, the Hopi prophecy, that we left by going up into the sky. And in my other book, in the new version of Nothing in This Book is True, I gave some very interesting accounts of how the Hopis and the Native Americans in general just envision this, where how they describe going up into the sky and the details and all of that. But anyway, they say at one point the sky hardens and we step out into the new world. And the new world, the next time around, as it is becoming polluted and immoral and difficult to live in, will be the fifth world. Here's what I really feel. In the interim, I feel that this great awakening is going to be such that, you can just go back to the Kabbalah. Their greatest fear is that is an awakened public, and that's exactly what's happening. And it's forcing them out of the darkness and into the light, where they can be exposed to the light and therefore transmuted into the light. So the game is up for those guys. And so I do feel that it's going to lead into a shift into the fourth dimension. And in the interim, after we go through this dark night of the soul, which is going to last maybe for another year, maybe for another couple years, and it's going to get darker and more scary because it has to in order to wake up the remaining people who are asleep. But I think what it's going to lead to is a golden age. This has been prophesized for a long, long time. And the golden age, I feel, is that all the technology that has been hidden from us for a long time, including the details of the secret space program, where we have the technology not only to go anywhere in this galaxy, but other galaxies as well, as incredible as that might seem.
Beyond the Forbidden.
Welcome to Beyond the Forbidden. Today on the show, I got Bob Frissell. Man, I've known about him for several years now. I have listened to many of his interviews, I've been wanting to get him on the show for a while. I first heard him on, I want to say it might have been Coast to Coast or back in the day. I'm not sure what was the first show I heard you on, but anyways, enough of me rambling. Bob Frissell, my man, welcome to Beyond Forbidden. How you doing?
Well, I'm just fine, Michael, and I'm glad to be here. I think we're going to go along just great. We had, for folks who are just tuning in right now, you and I did spend a couple minutes together, just saying hi and how are you and all that stuff. And I think that we're on the same page with a lot of things. So let's have a good time and let's see what we can do.
Well, we can muster up here, but don't say what we were talking about. You can say
no. I won't talk about what we were talking about.
Wait for the second hour. Wait for the second hour.
I discovered that you're a good guy and I like you, and I'm glad you asked me to be on your show. So that's all I'm going to say, Michael.
So appreciate it. I'll pay you after the show. So the first hour, let's try to keep it somewhat censorship happy, because we are so concerned about everyone's wellness and safety and their, I hate this censorship shit, but so the first hour, just keep it somewhat friendly, but the second hour, man, say what the hell you want to say, Bob. It doesn't matter. Okay. But
got it.
The second hour, I'm still going to post clips from the second hour, like there's something that I think that it just needs to be out there. I never put the full 2 hour behind a paywall. I always share clips to my Facebook page. And also thank you everybody that follow my Facebook page. I say it all the time, but I'm really mind blown how the page has grown over the years. We're pushing 250,000 followers. I really appreciate it. And, but Bob, man, so this new book you got, came out, I think in July, Catching the Ascension Wave, everything you need to know about the coming Great Awakening. And so we're going to talk a little bit about that and but what I've noticed with your books, Bob, is that in your research, it all kind of intertwines like a spider's web. It all correlates together. Everything. It's one big puzzle piece, jigsaw puzzle. So we may touch on some of your older research too, because like I said, it all interconnects. But before we get into your book, Bob, I know about you, but we got to go ahead and there are always going to be people, who is Bob Frissell? So give a little background about yourself and what led you down the rabbit hole with the research that you've been doing over the years, man.
Yeah, as a rabbit hole, it's very deep too. Goodness sakes, where do I begin? Okay, I'll just pick a spot. I got into all of this stuff, Michael, really out of necessity. There's no other way to explain it. Way back in the day, I was a professional bowler, and but not a very smart one, because I had not handled my unresolved emotional trauma dating back to childhood. And of course, I didn't even know what any of this stuff was back then. But to cut to the quick, what happened in my bowling career is that I hurt my back, but not just kind of, I hurt it really bad. And it wasn't much fun, all of a sudden, just, being in constant agonizing pain, and I just felt like I had my life taken away from me. And so the question becomes, well, what do you do? Uh, and the answer is that what saw me through all of this is that I had an absolute burning desire. Now, Michael, this is something that back then I thought everybody had it. I mean, I had it because, uh, I would spend, no, whatever sport that I was engaged in, basketball, baseball in high school, and bowling and golf in college, and then just bowling later on. I would spend hour after hour after hour just working on one particular shot or one particular little thing, just going for absolute perfection. And call me crazy or call me a guy with 100% intention. And so I just felt that that's something that everybody had. And I discovered, well, that's absolutely not true, but I had it. And so that's all I had back in the day when I was just crippled and wondering, what am I going to do next? And I said, well, I've got this 100% intention. I'm going to find a way to heal myself, no matter how long, no matter what it takes. And starting from square one. I like to make the analogy that I was stuck in a thick jungle and I had nothing to cut my way through other than a butter knife. So I didn't know a thing. I didn't know any of of what I've learned out of necessity since then. But everything did finally work out. I'm so pleased to say that I healed my back to the point to where it's like it never ever happened. And I and uh, well, that it's definitely in the rear view mirror. And out of that, everything I know was motivated by that. Now to come to the whole issue of, how did I get involved in this deep rabbit hole? Uh, Everything is a function of consciousness. That's one of the first things I learned. And so everything, as you suggested earlier, I discovered also is intertwined. And how does finding a way to heal myself interrelate to wanting to know what's going on? Well, the answer is this burning desire. I just had a burning desire that included, the more I dug into true healing methods versus just putting a Band-Aid over it and treating the symptoms, the more I began to realize that, as I said, everything is interconnected. And I also began to realize that much of what we think we know out there is simply not true. And the more I began to unpack this, the more I began to just, well, yeah, I was getting upset. My goodness, everybody's trying to lie to me and tell me that this is what's so. And I just got to the point to where I'm not going to listen to that stuff anymore. And so my burning desire began to take the form of, I want to find out I want to unpack this and get down to beyond the lies and find out what's really going on. And let me tell you, that began an exciting adventure that continues to this day. There's no end. The rabbit hole, as you know, is pretty darn deep. And it's pretty exciting too, because I think this is all, in spite of how it might look at the moment, I think it's all working out just exactly as it should. And I tried to make that point very clearly in my book. So, yeah, a little bit of a long-winded response
What
from me.
year?
So,
What year, Bob? Or what year was it roughly? Whenever you were like starting going down the rabbit hole, I kind of like to go in somewhat in chronological order. Somewhat like what year was it? Whenever you start looking into, like, let's say UFOs, conspiracies, the paranormal. About what year are we looking at then?
well, it really began in 1979, when I discovered the Hopi prophecy. One of my initial one of my earliest teachers back in beginning in 1979 was a guy named Leonard Orr. And Leonard spent some time with the Hopis, and he came back with his version of the Hopi prophecy, and he put it into a seminar that he put on tape. And I listened to it a number of times, and that really got the ball rolling. Just go from there to here again, one thing leads to another. The whole issue of I forgot the exact details of your question. I get carried away very easily. Could you just ask the question again,
I was
please?
just curious, what year did you go down the rabbit hole with like conspiracies, the paranormal, and UFOs,
UFOs,
extraterrestrials,
yeah,
and all
and
that?
all of that.
Yeah.
Well, because one thing leads to another. Throughout the 1980s, I was just mainly looking at in great detail this whole issue of beginning with the Hopi prophecy, where they were talking about great changes that we can expect in our lifetime. This is all in their prophecies. And then Leonard Orr was amplifying it and giving me plenty of other information to look at also. And ultimately, that just led to the UFO thing and the cover-ups there, and the cover-up implying that we've been lied to and told that we're all there is and there's nothing out there, and just nonsense like that. Uh, I guess I really in 1990 I began to realize that yes, the decade of the 1980s was a very revealing one. I had learned a lot, but I also began to realize that I'm just scratching the surface on what's available and what's possible out there. And this all came to me intuitively that there is missing information that I need to be aware of. Now, I had no idea, Michael, what the missing information might be, but it didn't matter because I realized I had the entrance requirement, and that was this burning desire. And because I was totally on purpose, I knew with certainty that I would be led to be in the right place at the right time to have the appropriate information revealed to me, and that is exactly what happened. So in January, it was either 1990 or 19, it was 1990, I think. Uh, I was, as I said, just led to the information. And I discovered what at the time for me was just totally mind-blowing, eye-opening, and partially frightening information about the whole UFO thing and about the ET connections and and all of that. And a researcher by the name of Bill Cooper, who I picked up his material and really ran with it. I first discovered Bill Cooper back in either 1989 or 1990. Uh, and this is before he wrote his book, his classic, Behold a Pale Horse.
I got it
When
right
he
here,
spoke to a, you
right
got it
there.
right there.
Yeah.
I knew you would.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Love me some Bill Cooper. But yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Well, before he came out with that book, he gave a conference at a MUFON conference, and he just spilled the beans, where he said that he was when he was in the, I mean, this guy was a military, he was all over the military. You pick the service, he spent time there. But when he was in the Navy, he was in charge of gathering information for, I guess it was Admiral Bernard A. Clary back in about 1975 or so. And this is when he stumbled upon all of this information. Now, a lot of the people that I was interacting with at the day, they thought Bill Cooper was a kook, but I didn't. I had developed enough of an intuitive knowledge to realize that I think this guy is really onto something. And so his research and other research just led me to the inescapable conclusion that there's just so much going on here. And ultimately, that led me in 1992. Again, I mean, it's the whole thing of just being totally on purpose. My sense of it in universal terms is that if you're 100% intention, meaning you're totally on purpose, in universal terms, that's recognized and you're just guided, you're led to where you need to be. And out of my interaction and meeting certain key people in January of 1991, ultimately, I joined a group in the Bay Area, where my home here, the San Francisco Bay Area, that met about once a month, and we were talking about these sort of things, talking about the sort of things that nobody else was. And out of that, I met a guy named Drunvalo Melchizedek. Now, he became a very important teacher back for me back in the early 1990s. I didn't meet him in person initially. I met him on videotape, where he was presenting, goodness sakes, what turned out to be a 32-hour-long workshop called The Flower of Life.
Mm.
And that workshop presented me with so much information that just completely blew my mind. I took that workshop on videotape with about 20 to maybe 25 other people, this like-minded group. And I was sitting in a long rectangular room, and in the front of the room was just this little TV set. I couldn't really see who this guy was, but what I was hearing was amazing. He just sounded so innocent, so matter of fact with it, like he's got nothing going on with it. He's just presenting this information, and he's not trying to convince you of anything. And that was really more convincing than anything. And I remember just going up the side aisles, just wondering, who is this guy? I want to at least get a glimpse of what he looks like. And I did. And he was just a common guy, and with all this amazing information. So that just got me started. Well, it got me started on a journey that continues to this day.
Do you want to help support Beyond Forbidden and receive extra content that's not seen anywhere else? By becoming a patron, a few things you will receive are the full-length 90-minute or 120-minute podcast episode. Members will also receive a private link of the video podcast and will only be exclusive to Patreon members. In-person, face-to-face interviews with some of the most well-known, respected researchers. Behind-the-scenes footage of interviews not seen anywhere else. And that's just a few perks. So what do you have to lose? Cut out one brain-rotting, overly processed Happy Meal a month that doesn't do anything beneficial for your mind, body, and spirit, and become a Patreon for just $5.
And
Did you ever? How many conferences did you go to back then?
well, I spent what not
Did you
many.
go to a Bill Cooper conference?
No, never met Bill Cooper in person, but had plenty of Bill Cooper on audio and on video. And
Did you ever listen to his broadcast back then?
I listened to a few of them, but mostly what I was getting from Bill Cooper came from, first of all, his report from the MUFON conference, then the book "Behold a Pale Horse," and certainly the videos that I had an ample number of videos. Probably just about everything that he put on video I got a hold of. So that's how I met and dug into Bill Cooper. But that quickly evolved into into the teachings of Drunvalo, because I dug a little bit and I found out, gee, maybe I can get a copy of that 32-hour video workshop, and I found out how to do it, and I did. And when those videos came, I just locked the doors, almost literally, took the phone off the hook and said, don't bother me. There's nothing else that's more important to me. And I just made it my life's work for as long as it took, with the full intention of knowing what he knows. I wanted to master his information. And of course, what that led to was I was being asked to write a book. It's the only way I ever would have written a book. And that was Nothing in This Book is True, but Exactly How Things Are, which came out in August of 1994. And that put me on the map, where, as you said, you've listened to maybe 20 or so of my interviews. Well, I was just starting from square one, just from a guy who is trying to figure out a way how to heal himself, to all of a sudden this instant celebrity who is now a featured speaker at multiple UFO conferences and multiple different, what they were called back in the day, Whole Life Expo conferences, Whole Living Expo conferences, now I think they call them. But basically I found myself just hopping on a plane, going somewhere every week. I was that much in demand.
You ever
And
gone to Eureka Springs, the Ozark UFO conference?
no,
Never gone
no,
there?
I probably missed most of them, but I did partake in a lot of them and met a lot of very interesting people. A lot of this, just like-minded people. It was just fun hanging out with them.
So, Bob, we're about to get more into your book, but you mentioned the Hopi prophecies. So, I'm we need to go ahead and explain a little bit to the audience about the Hopi prophecies, and you don't have to spend 10 minutes on it, but give everybody a little Cliff Notes version of the Hopi prophecies before we move forward, Bob.
Well, yeah, way back in the day, back in 1979, when I first discovered it, they were talking about major Earth changes and that we'd better be prepared. And this is the first that I had ever heard of it. But I took it seriously because, my goodness, these are the Hopis. I mean, they're probably not just blowing smoke. I respected them and just began to do really a ton of research that led me to in a number of different directions. But the thing is, Michael, they were all saying essentially the same thing, in that there's going to be major Earth changes. Some of them gave explanations as to why, others didn't. They just said, this is what's going to happen, and you better be prepared. Nothing in this book is true, as I indicated a few moments ago. First came out in August of 1994, but I've since updated it with the 25th anniversary edition of the book, which is essentially a brand new book. Because not only does it have major additions and updates, but it also has 10 completely new chapters. Actually, more than 10 completely new chapters. I lose count. And in one of those chapters, one of those completely new chapters, I have a chapter entitled End Time Prophecies, where I give the details not only on the Hopi prophecy, but also the updated version of it. And I'll give you the updated version of it, where what I discovered was that I believe it was in October. I'm either the 17th or the 24th of 2007, where in our solar system, there was a comet that made its appearance, Comet 17P, also known as Comet Holmes. And when it came into the solar system, it continued to grow in size until very briefly, it was the biggest and I don't know if the brightest, but at least the biggest object in our solar system, even bigger than the sun. Now, it's long ago since faded back into obscurity, but that comet, that appearance of the comet, was the fulfillment, according to the Hopi elders, of a whole 200-year-old Hopi prophecy, where they said that that put us into a 7-year window in the end times, which means that, according to the Hopi prophecy, these changes are going to happen. What kind of changes? Well, the Hopi speak of the blue star Kachina. And when they speak of a Kachina, what they're talking about is spirit, the invisible forces of spirits, basically, that show up in the weather and that show up in all sorts of different ways, that if you're in alignment with life, as the Hopis are, it shows up and your crop is turning out, good, and other good things happening. You get rain at the right time and stuff like that. Well, the blue star Kachina, according to Hopi prophecy, was first to make its appearance in the night dances in the form of the men, dressing up and impersonating this blue star Kachina. And what they were impersonating was this event that was to happen in the sky, which, according to the Hopi, happened on October 24th, 2007, when Comet Holmes made its appearance. And they said, as I indicated, this would put us into the end times. And the real catch is when the red star Kachina made its appearance in the heavens. And what the red star Kachina, according to Hopi prophecy, is this will usher us into the actual changes themselves. Now, the Hopi believe that we are going from the fourth world to the fifth world. And for those of you who have read my books, I speak of going from the third dimension into the fourth dimension. But we're actually talking about the same thing, because the Hopi believe the voidness from where all this came from is actually a place. So that's how they get the fourth world, going to the fifth instead of the third to the fourth.
Just different
But
perspectives.
interestingly enough, go ahead.
It was just different perspectives, you know.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
But really, we're talking about the same thing, because, you know, I go on in nothing to talk about how each dimensional world is separated by great voidness. And this is essentially what the Hopis are saying. But the 7-year window that now their timing is off, but I do believe the prophecy is still quite accurate, but it's very difficult to get timing as accurate because we're in such accelerated times right now, and they did the best they could. But the ushering us into the end times, meaning that according to Hopi prophecy, we're going to be going from the fourth world to the fifth world. Now, interestingly enough, they believe that we came from inside the earth, and that 3 times previously the earth has become polluted and immoral, and we just had to leave. It got so bad we couldn't be in the old world anymore. And they say, the Hopi prophecy, that we left by going up into the sky. And in my other book, in the new version of Nothing in This Book is True, I gave some very interesting accounts of how the Hopis and the Native Americans in general just envision this, how they describe going up into the sky and the details and all of that. But anyway, they say at one point the sky hardens and we step out into the new world. And the new world, the next time around, as it is becoming polluted and immoral and difficult to live in, will be the fifth world. And what will usher all of that in is the red star Kachina. Basically, that's the
is that basically,
to put it mildly, the Earth change.
Is that basically the cosmic dust cloud that you talk about?
Well, you could make that analogy, absolutely. It's the Earth changes, and so that will usher us into the dimensional shift as I speak of it. Now, the great cosmic dust cloud that I alluded to in Catching the Ascension Wave in my newest book, that first I heard of it from the Secret Space Program, which is, another, go back to Bill Cooper. Bill Cooper was talking about the Secret Space Program back in the day, and because you've read his book, you understand what I mean when I say the Secret Space Program. But I've since researched that to discover that it goes way beyond what Bill Cooper was talking about back in the day oh goodness, we got 2 hours. We might want to jump into the details on that at some point.
Go ahead.
Kind of hard to talk about without.
This show's about you. I'm always here, Bob. So, go ahead.
Yeah.
That's why I'm trying not to cut in too much. I have my own questions, but you're well spoken. So, and you're fluid. So just go ahead. Just go ahead and tell your story, man.
We might dive into the details of the Secret Space Program just for the heck of it.
Let's do it, man. Let's do it.
But for right now, I want to cut to the quick and say that the Secret Space Program has been well aware of this cosmic dust cloud because they've flown their craft out there. And so they know that it had a dramatic and instant impact on the crew members that were out there. To put it very simply, the crew members who were more of a positive bent became more positive. Those who were more inclined to be negative became even more so. And so the question is, well, what's that all about and what's going on? And my response is that it reminds me of what Nikola Tesla said, one of my favorite quotes. And he said, if you want to understand the nature of reality, what this universe is all about, you got to think of it in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. And so if we look at our universe, if we look at our reality in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration, we realize that what this dust cloud is a much higher vibratory form of energy that's coming into our solar system. and it's been making its appearance ever since the 1950s, but it's here now. And what it means is that it's dramatically raising the vibratory rate of here and everyone and everything on it. Now, Nikola Tesla, again, for energy, frequency, and vibration. Well, everything is energy. The universe is made up of energy, vibrating energy, in which vast amounts of information can be stored. Infinite amounts of information can be stored, to be more exact. Our bodies are energy that contain vast amounts. I mean, you know, how much intelligence does it take to build and maintain a human body? It's infinite intelligence, I would say, source energy. And so we are living on a planet commonly referred to, I refer to it as third dimension. I think most people do. And third dimension is we've been vibrating at a very dense rate for a very long time, but this cannot go on forever, because what I mean by vibrating at a very dense rate, Michael, is that we are living on a planet that is totally mind-based. It's not who we are, but we're under the illusion that that's who we are. And most everybody is living from that illusion. And from living from that illusion, the mind is polarized. It's in a continual state of judgment as a result of that, and it looks out at the reality and it sees good and evil consciousness. Now, that's only a function of our perception. You expand and you raise your vibratory rate, and you begin to see something else quite differently. You begin to see the total interconnectedness of everything and not just the two polarities, this is good and this is bad. Again, that's just a function of our limited perception. But because we are in a continual state of judgment, we look out and we see if the person we're interacting with or the situation that we're dealing with does not measure up to our mind's idealized version of how it should be, we judge it, we make it wrong. Well, every time we do that, there's two components. There's the conceptual opponent. This person really is bad and wrong. And we tend to believe our make wrong or judgment, you know, like I'm right and you're wrong. And there's usually a significant amount of emotional charge, sometimes a whole lot of emotional charge. Well, what that does is it instantly generates an instant generated pattern of energy that we feel in the body. The body is energy. And so the instantly generated pattern of energy, because the conceptual thought behind it is a negative thought, can only be an unpleasant feeling pattern of energy. Or you can call it a sensation or simply a feeling. Now, you and I are very conditioned to want to feel good. And in the absence of any integrative technique, what we're resigned to and what we're reduced to is just trying to find a way to medicate over the unpleasant feelings, or in some way find a way to distance ourselves so we don't have to feel it so fully and we can kind of get on with our life. Well, what that's done is led to a whole lot of stuck energy in the body. And what I mean by a whole lot of stuck energy is a whole lot of unresolved emotional trauma that takes the form of guilt and shame and anxiety and depression and frustration and resentment. And you know what I'm talking about.
Could that
stuff
trauma,
like that.
could that trauma, Bob, and please don't lose your train of thought, but could that trauma have been passed over the centuries through our genetic makeup, through our family lineage,
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's passed on from generation to generation. Now, the good news is with this enormous increase in the vibratory energy coming in through this cosmic wave, we have an unprecedented opportunity to wake up. And really, that's what my books are. It's a wake-up call. I try to be gentle with it at some times, but at other times I get right down to the point. Folks, we got to wake up. And the good news is, Michael, we are waking up. Everything is progressing exactly as it should. So I'm not really concerned about anything. I'm just having a good time with all of it. But goodness sakes, I've laid a lot. Oh, yeah, the cosmic dust cloud that's coming in and the higher vibratory energy. Well, here again, it's impacting everything and everyone on the planet and dramatically raising our vibratory rate, which takes us right back to the Hopi prophecies, the prophecies of the Native Americans, and the prophecies of other people too are saying, all of whom are saying essentially the same thing, that we are in the end times. And you translate that a little bit, we're right on the verge of a great awakening. A great awakening that I would submit has already begun, and a great awakening that may not in the moment look like it because we're going through what I alluded to in Catching the Cosmic. What's the name of that book? Catching the Cosmic Wave or something like that.
Catching the Ascension wave.
There we go. Yeah, Catching the Cosmic Wave. That was a pretty good title too. Should have. Oh well, Ascension Wave. It'll have to do. What I alluded to in that book is that we're going through an individual and collective dark night of the soul. But this is not bad or wrong. This is absolutely what has to be happening. Because just like I experienced my great wake-up call back in the day out of absolute necessity, most people have taken a little slower trip to their wake-up call. But at some point, and many people are reaching it right now, the wake-up call is happening. And I'm seeing it everywhere I look with all the people that I interact with and all the people that I work with. Everybody that I talk to and everybody that I end up working with, the common denominator is the same. What we've all done by convincing ourselves that we are our mind, what we have all done is we put ourselves into this mental prison and we don't know how the heck to get out of it. And at some point it becomes so uncomfortable that we just have to reach out for help. I reached out for help back in the day and transformed my life completely as a result of that. And as a result of transforming my life, I began to realize that people want to hear what I've got to say. It first took the form of people being wildly enthused about my books, and then started taking the form of people discovering that I might have something going here and wanting to work with me. So I see that this transformation, dramatic transformation, is happening all over the planet, and all over the planet, I got clients everywhere, including Beijing in Australia and New Zealand and South Africa and Europe and all over North America. So I've got a pretty good sample base to come to the conclusion that what's happening is great. And this dark night of the soul is this collective healing. The result of this dramatic increase in vibratory rate that is bringing it out of the shadows and into the light, where we can begin to deal with it. And into the light is really essential because there's a great universal truth here. Very simply, what it says is that darkness cannot survive in the presence of light. You have to bring it out of the shadows where it can see the light of day, where it can then be transmuted into the light of day. And this is what's happening on an individual level. It's also what's happening on a collective level.
At the same time, Bob, we also need the dark. We need, because just like us, we can't live in day. I know it's a metaphor, but we can't live in daylight. We're not meant to sleep in daylight. Like we need the darkness. It's like a yin yang. It's as above, so below type of metaphor here. So with that said, Bob, do you think that there behind the scenes, I don't know what kind of war there is, a cosmic archontic type war with the Great Awakening and the Great Reset? You see what I'm saying? Like, is there like this whatever, because with the world leaders of today, they're pushing this Great Reset, ideology and how they want to build back better and all that. I don't want to go down that road, but it's in the picture. So they're trying to keep us from this Great Awakening that you and others talk about. So do you think that we're winning that war? And do you think that how far off do you think we are from the Great Awakening process, Bob? Because I've mentioned many times this year, and this is probably my 65th or 70th interview this year so far, that I feel like we need, it's not that I wish it, I don't want to bring it into fruition, but I feel like we need another type of 9/11 type event for people to just wake up and just,
don't worry, we're going to get it. Don't worry about that. That's going to happen.
Go ahead, Bob.
Yeah, but it's all unfolding as it should. Boy, this we're going to have to unpack this, Michael. It might include the Great Reset and all that, because those are not the real leaders. Those are the people that have been the cabal, as I like to call them, also referred to as the Illuminati, most commonly called the deep state right now. No matter what you call them, they're basically the global elite, the richest people on the planet. They have been controlling behind the scenes, the hidden hand, the puppet masters behind the curtain for a long, long time. They've been able to control who gets elected, who doesn't get elected. They've been able to control a nation's resources through the currency, through the central bank scam. Baron M.A. Rothschild back in the day said, "Give me control of a nation's currency, and I care not who makes its laws." People need to wake up to the scam of the Federal Reserve, that it is a debt-based system that's designed to enslave individuals and designed to enslave countries. It's all coming to an end right now because of the massive increase in the vibratory energy that's coming in. As I'm suggesting, the hidden hand is no longer hidden. They've been forced out of the shadows into the open of the daylight. The World Economic Forum and all their nonsense, they're just playing out their final hand. The Great Reset is not going to work. Their greatest fear is an awakened public, and that is exactly what's happening. Now, in my book, Catching the Ascension Wave, I talk about a guy by the name of Bill Wood, an ex-Navy SEAL, who back in, I think it was in 2011 or 2012, he gave a fascinating interview.
Project Camelot?
Yeah, there you go, on Project Camelot.
I think.
And I put the highlights of that in my book. It was just too good not to. And what he was saying is that dude who is intuitive and psychic abilities, he was summoned by the global elite to solve what they considered to be a major problem. And that was a conversion of the timelines beyond December 21st, 2012. The basic problem from their perspective is that they were, well, no, I have to backtrack a little bit. They were using a technology that is ET derived called Project Looking Glass, which enabled them to look into the future. And the white hats have it too, so it's really no big deal, and it's kind of useless at this point. But back in the day, before 2012, they were able to look into the future and to get a very good sense of the most likely outcome. If they were, and here again, they are the hidden hands, and they were manipulating events behind the scenes to get things to go in a desired direction, their desired direction. And they were very successful with this. But the problem as they saw it was that beyond December 21st, 2012, there was this conversion of the timelines. And no matter how much they tried to manipulate events, it always turned out, from their perspective, to be the exact opposite of what they wanted. Now, I didn't mention this in Ascension Wave, but I did mention it in Nothing in This Book is True, that back in about 1991 or so, for the first time in about 15 or 16,000 years, the forces on the planet were beginning to reverse themselves, meaning for the first time in a long, long time, the forces of darkness are not only beginning to fade into the woodwork, but the forces of light are actually becoming stronger. for the first time in about 15 or 16,000 years. And if that's true, what it means is that the laws are reversing themselves, that no matter how much the dark forces try to manipulate events, that they're not going to get the result they want. It's going to turn out to be the exact opposite. And that is the problem that Bill Wood was hired to try and troubleshoot back in the day. And so he did his due diligence. He tried to do his best, but he came back and report that no matter what he did, there's nothing that could be done, that this is it. Nothing can be done to reverse this. What he called it was the Great Awakening. And he said at first he thought it was the end of the world, but then he began to realize it's the end of their world, the end of the Cabal's world. And he likened it to two master chess players. So now I'm not a chess player, but just imagine you got these two master chess players. They're sitting and they realize that there's only about 7 moves left on the board, and that basically the game is already over. The game has already been won, and both sides realize it. Now, the side that's going to lose, they can say, okay, I surrender, or they can do whatever they can to try and prolong the game. But if even so, they've already lost the game. The moves are dictated by the eventual winner. And that's the way it's playing out right now. They're not going quietly. They're not going peacefully, because it's, I don't usually put it in these terms, but this is kind of like the ultimate battle between good and evil that is viewed from the perspective of third dimensional awareness. Now, I'm going to get into the larger perspective as we continue here, where it's just really oneness, and they're all working together, operating as timing agents. But we're not quite there yet. I just want to if you will, put a final stamp on the reality of it, and that is the dark forces have lost the game. But they're not going quietly. What they're left with now is creating as much chaos and confusion as they possibly can, in the hopes that the white hats will make some sort of a fatal mistake, and they're not going to make it. There's just too much light on the planet for that to happen. Okay, so with that being said, from the larger perspective, what I just said is totally a function of our perception from third dimensional awareness, where we're still seeing good and evil consciousness. Now you jump into the unity perspective of fourth dimensional awareness and beyond, and you begin to see something quite different. And that is that there is no separation. This good and evil stuff is just a function of our perception here from a very limited, when you look out at the reality with blinders on, as we have been doing, what you're going to see is good and evil, right and wrong. Well, okay. But from the larger perspective, that's just nonsense, because all there is unity. All there is everything and everyone is working together. Now, what you could call from that larger perspective the forces of light, and you could also call their counter opposite the forces of darkness, they're actually timing agents. They're actually working together to bring forth the changes at exactly the right moment. So the forces of light do everything they can to bring us into the light as quickly as possible. Balanced by the forces of darkness, which do everything they can to keep us stuck in fear and limitation for as long as possible. And you keep a person or a country or a planet stuck in fear, you got them. Because when you're stuck in fear, you're stuck in your reptilian brain. You don't think logically. You fly off the handle, and you probably are going to do the exact worst thing you can at the exact worst time, and wonder, what the heck happened? So that's what happens when you're stuck in fear. But from the larger perspective, one side doing everything they can to move us ahead as quickly as possible, the other side doing everything they can to keep us stuck as long as possible. The dark forces are actually serving us by giving us an opportunity to wake up. and it's the way, as I like to put it, to discover our innate ability, because we're all energy, to transmute that fear and life detracting energy into life enhancing energy, so we can raise our vibratory rate and get on with it and integrate what has been keeping us stuck, so we can move ahead into the light. And that's all a function of consciousness, all of which is a function of the cosmic dust cloud, or whatever you want to call it, that's coming in, that's dramatically increasing our vibratory rate, and all a function of the exciting times that we're living in right here and right now. But don't worry, it's going to get a lot more intense before it starts to really resolve itself. But that's necessary, because it's the necessary wake-up call that people need. And some people just need to be scared into waking up. But don't worry, it's all playing out as it should.